My name is Matthew Murphy. I'm the Director of Athletic Performance here at Concord High School. It's a high school about 30 minutes away from the University of Notre Dame. We're about 1,600 students, and actually, I believe Friday was the first official start date. So I've been here 1 year. Okay, so just to start, I wanted to say thank you to these people specifically. Family's always been there, supported me, athletes and students. Without them, I wouldn't have a job. They come in, they do the hard work, they do the workouts, and they have to come in every day and be ready to go. So I want to try and thank them to make sure that they get the recognition that they deserve for all the hard work that they put in. David Bakovic, he sort of got me started on this track back in high school. He sort of told me like, hey, if you want to do this for a living, study exercise science, get into the field, do internships, learn from whoever you can. And he sort of got me started. John Mangle gave me my first opportunity back at Mercer University and got a great chance to really get in there, get my hands dirty, and start learning from the ground up. Gary Schofield, he's now part of the NHSCA with high school strength and conditioning. So he's done a really, really good job in helping me sort of get my feet underneath me. Also got a chance to intern for him while he was still at Greater Atlanta Christian and learn sort of the high school setting and how he did it, and got a chance to learn a lot from him. The last four are people that I worked under at Arkansas State. The big deal about that is I got to learn sort of the best of what they do best from all of them, and it sort of shaped everything that we do here at Concord. So Coach Deed, big on energy, getting buy-in from the athletes, the culture that you kind of set with your attitude, because if your attitude isn't set the right way, then your athletes aren't going to get their attitude set the right way. Kaz Kazadi learned about more of the business, viewing it as a business, building your team, having the best people around you in positions to succeed. And then Dr. Pat Ivy really learning the mental side of training, not just strength and conditioning, but the mental sports psychology, thoughts, actions, behaviors, how all that intertwines and how you can help an athlete develop a better, stronger, and more well-rounded view of themselves as people, not just athletes. And then Jake Miller, got a chance to learn from him and sort of just continue to wrap everything together from the first three. So when I got here to Concord High School, this was actually their weight room. So they've had this for 30 plus years, and they were actually working on our new and current weight room, but this is what they had. So they would have athletes come in during school hours and train. They had a 0 hour, which is pretty much a before school training session. They would have some after school training sessions up in this weight room. And so this is what they've been using for the past 30 years. Now, this is what we currently have. It's a 13,000 square foot space. We have 28 platforms and 14 racks. We also have 30 yards of turf on the picture on the left. If we were to zoom out a little bit, on the right side is 30 yards of usable turf. There's multiple machines and cardio equipment on the far side of the room. And then in the second picture, you can see we have a projection screen, lat pull down row machine combo that we use to not only use for education, but it also helps them by putting up their sheets and announcements and things like that. So it's easier for the students to see. Now, the big thing about this room is, it's great and it's nice and everything's brand new, but those people in the second picture, those are the ones that make the room go. They're the ones that come in, they put in the work, they work together, they communicate, and these are things that we've sort of developed over the year, but they're the ones that make the room go. Because if you can have the greatest equipment in the world, you can have the most equipment, the most space, but if you're not getting the people in the room wanting to come in and train and compete and push each other, then it's just going to sit there and look pretty. So how this was structured is we had 6 classes per day, and first semester we had 357 total students enrolled. Second semester we increased to 422. So class sizes from the second semester range from 29 up to 105. So in the next slide, you'll see how it was all organized, but it was me and the head football coach, who's technically my assistant. Both of us would coach all those classes depending on what day it was. So we're ranging from groups from 29 up to 105 at one time, taking them through warm-ups, weights, conditioning, things like that, all within the time frame that we have in class. And so this is actually what our weekly structure looks like for the previous semester or previous year. So on Monday, all 6 classes come in. So if it's second semester of last year, we have 422 students coming through that room in a day. We give them 10 minutes in the beginning of class to change into their clothes. We also give them 10 minutes at the end of class to change back into their clothes or shower. So on Mondays, we're looking at 20 to 25 minutes of training, and then it goes into even and odd scheduling. So if you were part of the Tuesday, Thursday group, your training week would look like Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. Or if you were in the even group, you'd go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The 2 days later in the week, we would actually have 60 to 70 minutes worth of training time. So that's where we'd get more our meat and potatoes, longer lifts, more sets, more reps, things like that. Monday is more come in, get a chance to see everybody after competitions, after the weekend, get it all out of your system. So when we come back second and third training days of the week, you feel better and more prepared to go. So when I first got here, I knew nobody. I didn't know student names, sports, classes, anything like that. So what we did is we structured our rack assignments, and there's going to be a sheet on the next slide that'll be easier to see. But they were structured by sports teams, okay, during the first semester. So all football trained on these first 3 platforms, then basketball, then baseball, then women's cheer on another one, women's golf, women's swim and dive, and so on. After the first semester, when we actually have squat maxes, we still kept them within their teams, but then we ranked them by strength. So if somebody could squat 300 pounds and then the next 2 people were at 295 and 285, they got grouped together on one platform. Then the next strongest person would start the second platform. And this was also used for attendance and organization within class, because after probably the second week of being in the same spot, when they would walk in the door after changing their clothes, they knew exactly where to go. It was also almost like assigned seating, and it was easier to pass out their sheets, which we'll cover in a later slide, so they knew exactly where to go and what was expected of them when they got there. Now, their workout sheets, like I said, we'll cover that in a slide coming up, but it's customized to every athlete based on their weights and the percentages that we're using, and it's also individualized per day. So if it's a Wednesday and basketball has a game, what would happen is I would bring up all the basketball players after announcements and after the warm-up, talk to them and make changes where they would immediately write it in on their sheet so they would know when they went back to their racks. This sheet is also filled out by our students to count for like their grade in class. So even if somebody came in, did the workout, busted their butt, but didn't fill out their sheet, they would be counted as absent and not get a grade for the day. So the sheet that you're seeing on the left side was from 5th hour and second semester. So there's 105 kids in the sheet on the left versus first hour, second semester that had the 29 or 30. Now, what this does is this helps keep our room organized, and it also helps us with attendance, but it also helps the students compete. So knowing that you're training with people that you play your sport with, but also that they're similar in strength and training age also makes it more competitive. So if on rack B3, M. Riddle goes 300 pounds and it looks really good, and then A. Trudell wants to jump in and take a small jump from 295 to 300, it looks good. Okay, now let's go to the next set and see what you guys got in the tank. Of course, with this being said, it always comes back to technique, and it always comes back to quality of movement. So even if Riddle's feeling really good and his weights are moving fast and his technique is good, and Trudell wants to go up to compete with him, that's not the case because his form may be off today. Maybe he had 2 or 3 tests before he came in, or he didn't sleep well the night before. All those kinds of factors are thought of before making any adjustments that have to go through either me or Coach Kaler, the assistant. Now, this on the right side of your screen is what a one-day view of their card looks like. So this is from week 6, day 3 of our spring semester. Hang clean, since we were learning the Olympic movements, we had already gone through a movement I call jump shrug, or you pick the bar up off the floor in great technique, hinge to the top of the knee, jump, land soft, keeping the weight light. I think the heaviest we got with that, with even some of our strongest athletes, was 85 pounds. Females or newer students were somewhere around 35 to 65. We have short 15-pound training bars that we're able to use, especially with freshmen or younger student athletes or females, just because our range is so wide. We have some students in here that are 17, 18 years old. They've been lifting for 4 or 5 years, and they can move weight with good technique. And then you have a freshman, 14, 15 years old, never even been in a weight room before. So we really, really have to make sure we cut back and start the building blocks very, very early on. And on the next slide, I'll start covering the sheet more in depth, but pretty much it's an A side, B side split to help with efficiency and to keep everybody moving throughout the room. So with this slide right here, it can be very complicated, but it's really just a 3-day card, and this is what they get at their racks when they come into class. So day 1, super short, single leg work, mobility, RDL, core, pull up, back, because we really only have 20 to 25 minutes to train. So they would come in, jog 2 laps around the room, do a quick stretch, and have to go right to the racks just due to time. Day 2, so the middle column, where you have clean deadlift, 2 board bench press, chin up, weighted overhead sit-ups, and curtsy squat. This is deeper into our semester, so it's a little bit more advanced. And this is also for our returners or people who have gone through 1 semester in class. And so we can get a little bit more advanced with them. But this is where we have a longer warm-up, accelerated work, and now we're just going to have a whole bunch of meat and potatoes with deadlift, bench press, chin-ups, core, and hip mobility / weighted plano movements. And then to finish on day 3, it's very similar to day 2, except we're working a little bit more top end speed in the warm-up. We get a little bit longer warm-up as well. Then we got back squat, post chain, push-ups, and horizontal row. Now on day 3, where you see A and B side, where you saw on that rack assignment how it was labeled with A1, A2, AB, B1, B2. What that explains to them is that if you're on the A side of the room, you do half raises on post chain, or you do seated cable row with horizontal row. B side, you would do hamstring rollouts or TRX rows. The reason for this is when we have a class of 105, and really we had 2 classes of 100 when we had students transfer in and transfer classes later in the semester, that it makes it more efficient. So instead of having 50 people try and do, or 100 people try and do half raises with 7 machines, now we've got 20 to 25 starting there, 20 to 25 splitting with push-ups, and whoever's left would start with seated cable rows. Same with the B side. So it's just an easier way to keep things organized and efficient when trying to get 105 athletes through a workout in 70 minutes or less. And so this is what our spring 2020 week 6 sheet, week 5 would look like. So they'd come in. So the top one is what we would do on like a Tuesday, Thursday, or a Wednesday, Friday. It's a dynamic stretch, and then we'd focus on acceleration mechanics and jumps. Where it says NP and bolded, that's what we were calling like new people or people who are new to the class second semester, just because they still had to learn a lot of the basics. The hard part about how the class is structured is that you're not in it for a year. You have to sign up for it every semester. So somebody might be in it, not be in the class first semester, and then join the class second semester. So they are pretty much starting from scratch. And then the bottom warm up is what we would do on a Monday. So they would jog 2 laps, go through the stretch, and then get right to work because we have that 20 to 25-minute limit. Now, the order of class on the left is pretty much how we have to stay on task, because if we lose anything, you're it literally just works its way down the chain. So 9:50 to 9:56, the last bell rings, kids are changing, and they got to be in class before 9:57. If not, they have to do plate push and burpees for being late. 9:57 to 10:03, we're discussing the lift, sports psychology, any demonstrations or coaching points for new movements or just to review. 10:05 to 10:20, going through the warm up. 10:22 to 11, we're working, training. They have sport specific work after, if they finish the entire workout and there's time left. This would be like ACL prevention, shoulder care, hip care, all that kind of stuff to try and help them build up weak spots for certain sports. So for ACL care, on one day it's women's basketball, women's soccer, and cheer and dance are all working ACL care. On that same day one, you have, for shoulder care, you have baseball, softball, swim and dive, and I believe wrestling working on shoulder care. And then from 11:04 to 11:14, they're dismissed and they're changing to get ready for their next class. So some of the sports psychology stuff that we try and teach them in that short little period at the beginning or end of class is on the screen right now. So we have our mission statement. This is what we tried to develop with help of the students. And really what we're trying to do is prepare them not for just these 4 years that they're in the high school, but pretty much from the first day that they step into the weight room till the time they're put in the ground. We are trying to develop this person at a much deeper level than just their strength, their power, their flexibility, their nutrition education. We're trying to go way deeper than that. And we do that by talking about right and wrong thoughts. So think of wrong thoughts as negative or distracted thoughts. So you could have a student athlete who gets really distracted when they're thinking about, what's going on Twitter, who's in the stands, is so-and-so watching, all these kinds of things, which takes away from their ability to perform in that moment. And then having the right skills or the right thoughts to help their performance. So that could be, okay, what's my alignment? What's my assignment? What's my technique on this play? I'm fast, I'm strong, I'm powerful. Those kinds of thoughts that they have to repeat over and over and over and over and over again and practice consistently to develop the skill of thinking right. Because it's until they're taught, they don't. Some might do it naturally, but most don't. Most have the issue of, something bad happens and they hang their head, or they get frustrated and their performance starts to drop. So trying to teach them this skill is trying to help them. If something doesn't go your way, you don't pout, you don't blame the official, you don't get frustrated. You either clear it or park it so you can discuss it with your coach, or you're clear, hey, it was a bad play, I made a mistake, I'm going to get him on the next one. But that skill is very important past their time as a competitive athlete, because things are going to happen in life. And one of the lessons deeper in the educational sort of process that we're trying to go through with them is talking about emotional flexibility, emotional strength, emotional responsiveness, because we don't know what kind of day we're going to have when we wake up in the morning. We don't know if it's going to be the best day of our life or the worst day of our life, but we're going to be prepared for either one. Or if we get up in the morning and our car's got a flat tire and there's 2 foot of snow on the ground, okay, that's fine. Call a friend, have them come pick you up. We'll get the tire fixed, but I'm not going to let it ruin my day. I have other things that I need to be ready for. I might have to have a positive influence on a friend because they're having a bad day, or I might have to stay focused because I've got a really, really important test or a really important presentation to have. So that's where we're trying to teach them these skills so they can use them throughout their entire life, not just their time here as an athlete. The bottom one is using our nutritional education, because we are trying to set up a nutrition program here at the high school. So what we did is we developed an acronym called FASTER. And so each letter stands for something in particular. F is fruits and veggies at every meal. A is always hydrated. S is start with breakfast. T is think clean protein. E is eat often. And R is rest and recover. So what happens is we'll cover fruits and veggies at every meal. This is what helps. This is what you're looking for. And then, of course, because of this generation, they're really big into memes and funny pictures and stuff like that. I try and give them something to leave. At least if they remember the meme or the funny picture, they'll remember what they need to try and do. Because our goal with this is not to give them this rigid structure that you must follow these steps. This is to help you no matter where you go. You can be healthy even if you have to go to McDonald's. Maybe I'm going to try and get a side salad instead of fries, to try and get my veggies. If I'm always hydrated, I'm going to get water instead of soda, things like that. We also here on campus play the water bottle game. So pretty much what happens is you have to have a water bottle on you at all times on campus. If I catch you without your water bottle, it's 5 push-ups on the spot. Now, for me, since I'm playing, I'm going to double it up. And if they catch me without my water bottle, it'll be 10 push-ups. So this is to help them continue to have their water bottle in their hand. Even if they're not drinking, it is still there. And it's a mental reminder, hey, I got to drink water to stay hydrated. So it's a little fun game to get to trick them into continuing to push hydration and make it a little bit of fun. Okay. So the environment that we're trying to develop in this room is really, we want fanatical effort in everything that we do. If we're moving from one platform to the next in the circuit and it's only 2 steps, we still want you to try and get there as fast as you can. Take really strong 2 steps, get there, then you can take your breath and be ready to lock in for what you're doing. We want to have attention to detail. So at the end of a workout, they can't leave until every bumper plate has the Concord logo pointed up. Same with the dumbbells. All of our clips have to be in the same spot. All these kinds of things to try and get them to take ownership of the room, but also continually practice attention to detail so they carry it into class, if they have a job or at home, so they can be a positive influence on their family, or if they have siblings, things like that. We want to have a positive attitude, because any negative attitude can and just will suck the life out of the room. It's plain and simple. You got that one person who's got that bad attitude, and everybody, it just builds. So having that positive attitude, even when you come in the door, whatever's bothering you, leave it at the door. This is your escape. This is where you can take out any frustrations you have on the weights and hopefully leave feeling better than when you walked in. And then just respecting each other. Even when you're competing, even when you're pushing each other, you still have to respect each other. If me and another student are running a race and I win, I'm still going to tell them good job. Hey, we'll keep pushing each other and we'll keep getting better. Like that kind of respect. Or if somebody's foot's on the line while we're warming up, having somebody say, hey, back up, your foot's on the line. And instead of, getting an attitude with that person, just saying, hey, thanks, appreciate it, I got it. Things like that to carry over. Because all of these lessons that we're trying to teach, once again, is going past their time here at Concord and hopefully into life after high school, after college, when they're a parent, when they're, a successful professional in whatever they do. And some of the things that, have happened that we've tried to do to develop this kind of environment, as the first warm up for football, we've got it down to about 7 to 10 minutes in class. The first time we did it with football, since they were the first team that I worked with, it took 75 minutes. They just kept doing it wrong, so we kept doing it until we got it right. The first week of class, fall semester, it took us 2 days, 2 full training days to just get the warm up right, just because it was that important to try and really hammer those details, those standards, so we don't have to try and change or fix them later. We can get it now, get it done, get them set. This is what I expect. If it's not to that, then we're going to keep doing it. So then we can focus on actually training speed work, strength, all that kind of stuff later in their process. You know, and then the goals of the environment, it all goes back to building confidence, teaching autonomy, leadership, and allowing the energy to be contagious. You know, all these things are way, 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 way deeper than just lifting weights and running and jumping and all that kind of stuff. We want them to build self-confidence so they can go out and they can be the best version of themselves every day. We want them to have autonomy in the workouts. I don't want to sit there and have to count every single rep. I want you to be accountable for yourself, because when you go out and get a job, you have to be accountable for yourself. Your boss isn't going to stand over your shoulder and sit there and make sure that you're doing all of your work. The leadership aspect is, you know, some of these people are going to go out and they're going to be business leaders. They're going to own their own companies. They're going to be CEOs or managers of whatever businesses. So if they haven't learned leadership at a lower level or in a more controlled environment, then they're just going to struggle when they get closer to their career. You know, these are our pillars for training our athletes. It's always quality of movement first. This is a slow cooker method. I don't one rep max. I do rep maxes on core lifts. There's no point in putting a kid under a 1 rep load when they've only been lifting for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, a year, 2 years. There's just a lot of skill involved with taking singles. So we do rep max testing instead of 1 rep testing. Power and speed. We do sprints and jumps like you saw in the warm up twice a week. Mainly focus on vertical and broad jumps right now, getting more complex as we develop and get farther and farther into the program. And our injury prevention definitely goes back to those sport specific exercises post workout to try and help them develop develop more weaker areas that we usually see with those sports, because really the end goal is to try and improve their performance and reduce injuries. You know, some of the projects that we have, you know, we've built a database for testing and organization. We're continuing to try and push for nutrition in our classes, getting protein shakes after a workout, having fresh fruit, bananas, oranges, sandwiches, stuff like that for our students. Getting better with testing and tracking now that we have jump mats, now that we have more timing systems, things like that. Also, just trying to develop the performance department as a whole, having, you know, professional interns, going to more clinics, hopefully presenting at more clinics, you know, maybe one day developing an assistant coach position so that we can almost split it and be a little bit more direct with teams, instead of having one person in charge of 17, having, you know, 2 people in charge of 8 programs apiece. And then that junior high program to try and get these kids in early, shorten the learning process so we can get deeper into training faster. And then here's my contact information if anybody has any questions or wants to go back and review, you know, anything from this presentation. The easiest way is these 2 methods, and I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can.
We do have a question here. If the school has never had a strength and conditioning coach or organized program before, and you would be the first one, what would be your biggest piece of advice?
My biggest piece of advice is just be yourself. Like, what you want and what you do is going to start from day one. So if you are trying to be this super energetic person that's, you know, running around like crazy and is having a good time with the kids, but you're also very detailed and organized, you have to be that same person every single day. So you can't come in, you know, week 2, day 3 and just be flat and just stand in the middle of the room, just watching, not really talking, allowing, you know, details to slip by, like leaving plates on the floor or having logos not turned up, because the kids are really watching you. You know, you are their role model. You are the person that they are going to copy the most. So whatever you sort of want your program to look like or be, you have to be that from day one. You know, you have to set that expectation. You have to be that person from day one until the end of time, because over time, those kids are going to develop the same sort of habits, mannerisms, and lessons that you teach them just because they're going to see you do it all the time. So if you're coming in 5 minutes late to class, well, they're just going to be like, well, coach does it. Why don't I? Coach doesn't have his water bottle. Why should I carry one? So.
All right, if you got any other questions for Coach Murray, go ahead and fill them out or type it into the chat box. Coach, are you guys doing summer training right now, this whole COVID-19 stuff?
Yes, we are. So the way that we've done it with COVID and all the guidelines that we've got, we've been very lucky with the Indiana Department of Education and Elkhart County Health Board. So the way that we do it is sort of like each team trains in a group, and we're limited to 50 per group just because of the size of our room. We are very lucky in that aspect where we can go 50 deep, but everything is spaced out. So think of the room as having 6 areas or 6 like exercises, and within those 6 exercises, everybody's marked out 6 feet away from the person doing the movement. So if me and you are partnered up and we're doing prowler pushes in our turf, you've got a spot to stand 6 feet away. I push the prowler down, and as we're rotating, we're staying 6 feet apart, and then you grab the prowler, you push it back, and then we continue to rotate until we rotate stations. At the end, everybody cleans with disinfectant that we've been cleared to use by our janitorial staff. And then also on Tuesdays and Thursdays, they do a wonderful job coming in and really just deep cleaning everything: racks, floors, barbells, dumbbells, plates, everything.
We got another question here. Do you see any trends in the large versus small classes in terms of gains, injuries, being able to add in more of the sports specific?
So with the smaller classes, we do see a little bit of improvement in terms of gains, reduction of injuries, or being able to add more sports specific training implements, just because it's easier to talk to the student one-on-one and see, okay, your left knee is caving in when you're squatting. Let's be more active and try and rip the floor apart. And you watch them again, and it's still happening. So it's saying, okay, let's see if we can work on these glutes and hips and see if we can get everything sort of reset back to where we want it. With the larger classes, we see almost like a greater increase in competition, just because of the energy in the room from having more people in it. 105 students in here, barbells moving, music's blasting, everybody's having a good time, and they just sort of feed off of that. So I think it's almost a double-edged sword, where with the smaller classes, you can get a lot more specific, and they can have those massive improvements from getting a little bit more specific. But the larger classes has more of the energy training environment that continues to spur those improvements, just because they want to compete and they want to, push each other with having more, I guess, like friends or training partners around them.
All right, I'm not seeing any more questions. We'll give it a few more seconds, see if anyone comes up with anything.
And then just to add, like, those sheets that were on the slides, I actually have like the computer file copy if anybody wanted to look at it and try and if that would help anybody in their situation. So if you have a large group to try and train, you can email me and we can try and work through sitting down and sort of explaining it, so you can try and implement it if that would help you with your groups.
All right, we got another one. This comes from esteemed Manchester University alumni, Aaron Miller. Do you have freshmen do back squat within the first year after progressions, or wait until their sophomore year?
With it being the first year, it was kind of a mixed bag, just because we had some freshmen mixed in with returners with the first group, and we had freshmen training with seniors. So the question is yes, but moving forward, it might shift more into their sophomore year. It just depends on how their progressions go. So we start with goblet squat, then we go to front squat, then we go to back squat. Um, the great thing about it as well is that with that sheet, I can individualize each person's workout on the fly. So if I'm walking around and we have front squat programmed or back squat programmed, and I see that somebody's really, really struggling, I can say, look, we're not there yet. We got to master this one. If you master this one, it's going to help you more when we go into front squat or back squat, or if we need to do belt squat, or if we need to do something like prowler pushes because they have a low back injury. So yes, for year one, moving forward, probably shifting more into their sophomore year, depending on how well they progress throughout the year.
How do you go about implementing some of the speed work? Do you do it within the class, or are you guys having a time after school as a whole group, or are you still just doing like specific sports times? Or
So with the speed work, if it's during the school year, we would do it in class. So the warm-up sheet where it said acceleration or top end speed mechanics, we would hit it in the warm-up. So get-offs were our version of like a competitive 10-yard sprint. So we do the dynamic warm-up, and at the end, it'd be like, all right, line up. If you want to challenge somebody, call them out. But you got to go from this cone to this cone, which is normally 10 yards, as fast as you can. We would do split stance, square stance, or feet even, on your stomach, on your back, kneeling, all those kinds of different positions within the warm up. That's our first day of speed work. We would follow that with jumps. So we're working, vertical power and then acceleration. On the second day, we would do more top end speed mechanics like flying 10s, flying 20s, because we're lucky enough to have a hallway right outside the weight room that's like 60 yards long. So we can do flying 10s, flying 20s, have them get 2-3 reps, buzz through everybody within 6-7 minutes, and then get them back into the weight room, do some jumps, and then go right to their lift. So it is more in class, but we also have after school workouts or before and after school workouts to be a little bit more specific with speed training, with power development. And we also allow kids to like make up workouts that way. So you have both in class and before and after school as well.
all right, that seems to be the last question. I'm not seeing any new ones getting typed in here. So, Coach, definitely appreciate it. Thank you very much. Again, if you guys ever have any questions, there's Coach's information. Feel free to reach out to him. I got to say, I'm very jealous of your new weight room. That is amazing. We got a new weight room here at Manchester this in August. It does not look anything like that. So, but that is a beauty for sure. So.
Yeah, I was lucky. They did pretty much everything before I got here. So very, very little in the way of what I would change, very, very little in the way of what I had input wise in planning. It was all pretty much done before I was hired. I pretty much showed up week one, floor got put in, second week, equipment came in. Like a month later, we're ready to roll training.
That's great. It's awesome. Again, Coach, thank you very much. And, thank you for joining in and everyone tuning in. Next, we're going to have a little, Coach Miller says thank you as well.
Appreciate it.
So